What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the GoBundance Podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Gruber. We dive deep on GoBundance members to extract the knowledge of their story, how they got to where they are today. And today we had an incredible guest, Brandon Davis, who is a serial entrepreneur, oil and gas executive, and owner of the company. I shouldn't even call him an executive. He owns the company, and an incredible GoBundance brother of mine. We dive deep on a lot of stuff in this call. In particular, it's interesting to learn that he owns a gold mine. He owned a NASCAR team at one point. He even had a private jet, but why he gave all that stuff up, or why he's trying to give some of it up, is all covered in this interview. In addition, toward the end, we talk about a time he sold his soul. You'll be really interested in what his answer is on that. But this is a man who has driven businesses to multiple 7 and 8 figure revenue. He's done it his whole life. He's got an insatiable drive. He's an action-based person. You'll hear his highs, you'll hear some lows, and plenty of stuff in between. I really hope you enjoy this interview. I think you're going to get a ton out of it. Make sure that you subscribe, like, drop a comment. Let us know what you think about Brandon, his career, and where he is today, and anything else that you took away from his incredible story. But until then, enjoy this incredible, wide-ranging, energetic interview with my friend, Brandon Davis. Brandon Davis, welcome, brother.
Thanks for having me. And actually, you called and harassed me a few times before we met in Tahoe, if you recall.
This is true. In the middle of, what do you call it? Snowmageddon, or whatever the hell they called it.
Whatever it was, I'm glad it happened.
Me too. It's great to connect with you today. Great to have you here. So let's get your story. You've had some tremendous success in the industries that you're in. Give us kind of the backstory of you. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And take us all the way up through today.
It's a long story. You sure you want to go into all that?
I'm ready, man. I'm ready.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm from Western Oklahoma. Grew up small towns. And I say towns because I moved around a lot. I believe at one point I counted that I changed schools 20 times between kindergarten and graduating high school. And
military? No.
This was all for the most part within 60 miles of each other. Just parents divorced when I was young, financial hardships, parents and grandparents, and it was just all over the place. So I did what I had to do and survived. And honestly, I'm glad that all of that happened. It made it easy for me to adapt and move, which is what I do now in business. So whatever all caused all that, I'm glad it happened the way it did, because it's really opened my eyes to new things and finding and figuring out how to get in and talk to people and understand situations that, if I had been in the same place my whole life and been privileged in that regard, I don't think I'd be the same person. So I'm very pleased with how it turned out, but it was definitely a ride. So went to college, played football my freshman year, decided that I'd rather make money. And so I switched to a community college and a full-time job. And that led to 5 years of 3 or 4 part-time jobs at the same time and a little bit of school. And finally, I just gave up on that. I actually had a job where I started making decent money. It was in early 2000s. I was making $25,000 a month selling vacation memberships.
Nice.
So it's like timeshare, but not. It's like we would have people all come to this office building instead of a beautiful resort. And then we would show them pictures of beautiful resorts. And then we would sell them a membership to a club where they could pay to go to those resorts if they wanted to. And that's where I cut my teeth in sales.
Wow. Yeah.
It was interesting.
Though, to get 20,000, you were making in commissions. This wasn't sales amount. You were making $25,000 a month.
Correct. Well, I must tell the rest of the story, because the other salespeople were making $5,000 to $7,000 a month. There was a night that I went out with the owner of the franchise. He needed some cash. He's like, well, if you can get me $5,000, I'll give you half of the business. And at the time, he was making like 10 grand a month. So it wasn't like he was killing it, right? Yeah. So I went and stuck my credit card in the machine and pulled out $5,000 and walked over and handed him $5,000 and said, okay, let's do it. Sadly, I didn't have any agreements. So we kicked ass for about 18 months, almost 2 years. And it went from making basically every week we were making profits beyond what he was making monthly before I got in there and started working with him. Yeah. No real reason for that other than the chemistry worked. The group of guys latched on to what we were doing, and it took off to the point that he sold it. And when it got sold, I got nothing. So I was.
What did he say? Like, I'm sure you approached him. Was he like, don't remember? Like, how did that?
Well, I was 21 years old, and maybe 22. I was young, and he told me what we got was this job in Florida. So I was in Jacksonville, Florida, working for this new company that bought our group out, and I was making like $2,500 a month and starving. And I told him if that's all it is, I'm out. So it's one of those situations that I didn't really have any. I didn't know what the deal was that he received. I had no idea. Still to this day, I don't.
Yeah.
Didn't know what his compensation was. All I know that mine wasn't enough for me to survive, so I had to get out of there. So literally in the middle of the night, threw all my clothes in my car in Jacksonville, drove through the night back to my dad's house in Oklahoma, left furniture, TVs, all of my stuff in Florida, and went back and stayed with my dad. Worked with some buddies for a few months when I got back to Oklahoma. Helped them start a mail marketing business. They're already doing those things that you probably never received one, but it's very aggressive marketing to low credit people to buy cars, because most people with bad credit used to think they couldn't buy cars.
Sure.
So they marketed that was their main business. So I branched out that business into and I was only there 6 months, but I got them connected with the Republican Party in Oklahoma.
Wow.
And that turned into one of their largest clients, and now they're one of the largest mailing companies in the state of Oklahoma. So they're killing it, and I had a good time there for a few months. And then from that, I went to Denver, Colorado, because my cousin and my uncle were in the mortgage business, and this was in 2002, 2003, when it's kind of like right now, refis and mortgages, everybody's going crazy. So I moved there to work with them, and I hated it. I hated all the I's you had to dot and T's you had to cross, and it was just way more detailed than anything I'd ever done. So I started looking for a new job, and I sold water filtration systems door to door for a while, and then got a job with an oil and gas company, raising money to drill oil and gas wells. And when I walked into the place, there were 20 other guys there trying to sell. 6 months later, I was the only one standing, including the management, and I was the manager. So I latched on, did well, and had a lot of fun with it, and kind of been crazy ever since. So that was my step off into oil and gas. Very interesting.
So there's a through line with this of decisiveness. Guy says, "Hey, I want to buy. You give me $5,000, I'll give you half the business." Done at the ATM right there in the bar or wherever it was. Right.
It was a bar.
The bar. Yeah. So Jacksonville to Oklahoma, middle of the night, leave it all there. I'm deciding. Then to Denver, where you get into the mortgage industry. Like, where did that come from? This decisiveness? Has that always been you? Is it something that you've developed? Is it something that you learned you should do? I'm just kind of curious where that came from, because it seems to have fueled a lot of your success.
That is a great question, and I don't have an answer. I've actually been asked that before, and I've thought about it a lot and looked back over my life. I didn't have a lot of choice a lot of times growing up. So it's kind of like the Monday morning quarterback. You get to see what everybody else is doing, and so I think that I've developed or did develop early on a process of elimination to very quickly get to at least a general idea of what I wanted to do. And if I felt that the risk was bearable to go off and do it, I just did it. And
let's dissect that a little bit. What does that look like? What is a bearable risk for you? Like what kind of, like when you start to go down through the process in your mind, I'm sure it's very quick, but like, what are some of the things that have to fall? You say, yes, I'm going to do it. Is it just, it feels good, it's aligned, it makes sense? Is that simple? Is that broad? Or do you have some specific criteria before you make a decision? I mean, you make it quick, obviously, but kind of curious how you dissect it.
And none of that was as quick as it sounds. I mean, those are things that I had conversations, discussions, and information and data brought to me, or at least I read, was discussed. But the general synopsis of my thought process is, what is the absolute worst thing that could happen? And is that worse than my current situation, or is it about the same? And if that's the worst I could end up, that starts me off on okay, this is probably okay for me to do. What's the upside look like? And somewhere in there, you start looking at, well, will I enjoy this? Is it going to be fun? Or do I like the people involved? Is it something that I could grow with? Those are the kinds of things that I've thought of in these scenarios over the years. And today it's a bunch of different process because it's slower, and I'm much more conservative than I used to be. Sure. But back then I didn't have anything, so it didn't matter. It was just like, okay, well, the worst thing I'm back here, homeless, carless, and with the clothes on my back. I don't care. Didn't bother me.
Yeah.
So I think that was my process of elimination. First, like, what's the worst thing that could happen? What is the upside? How much fun's it going to be? And how cool are the people? I mean, those were the important things to me in my early 20s. I just want to have a good time. Yeah. So, even with all that, it was obviously I made some mistakes along the way.
Well,
So
yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure you have. And I was going to say, I'm sure there are failures with this next question. I'm sure there are failures that you could speak to, and, feel free to share one or two if you'd like to. But the other thing that I was hearing in your story was that you do have, when it does hit, the ability to take something where it is and expand it. So what is that skill? Are you visionary? Are you an integrator? Are you just operationally sort of very skillful? Do you have a natural gift or knack for seeing the potential of something and then lining up the dominoes to make them fall to grow a business or grow your net worth or whatever? Like, what is that skill that you have that's allowed you to grow the vacation rental business the way you did, and all the other businesses that you've been in that we've talked about so far? What is that? What is that?
Process efficiency, more, and then excitement, enthusiasm, and drive behind it. So see where the delays are, where things are slowing down, what's costing money. Try to eliminate as many of those as you can. Take something that it looks like a road going up the side of a mountain and turn it into a freeway on a flat state. Like, you want to get to the end game as fast as you can. And then once you determine how to do that, and that's kind of how my brain works, like, okay, what's the fastest way to get there? Once we figure that out, then put all the fuel behind it, excitement, enthusiasm, and then, I jump on the cart in the front and go with everybody else. So push.
So who do you hire? Meaning, like, so you have that's your skill. That's the gift you bring to something. Like, what do you hire out because it's not your thing?
Everything else, let's see, accounting, marketing, legal, engineering, everything. Anything that has to do with details and a deep dive. I mean, a lot of guys are in that 20, 30,000 foot range, and that's where they like to be. I like to be about 50. And if I get closer than that, my feet burn, and I get bored, because my problem is I'm a little bit of an introvert, but I keep myself pushed out there to be an extrovert and kind of be in front of people. But if I get caught up in doing the detail work in a task, no one will ever see me. I'll come to my office, close the door. I'll be so deep in the weeds that someone can come in and start yelling at me, and I don't even notice they're standing there. I mean, so I've got to keep myself out of that. And so I hire around that. I know that's I'm slow. I'm not good at it. I make a lot of mistakes, and it takes away from the energy and excitement that pushes my businesses forward. I mean, which is what the value I bring. I mean, no one else can get everyone moving as fast or as quickly as I can. So
a lot of wisdom in that. That makes sense. Just get the little I've gotten to know you. That makes a lot of sense. Like, you've got an energy, a posture about you that's very much like, let's go. And I can see people feeding off of that. So if you're stuck in a room somewhere where, you're in the minutia of a spreadsheet or something like that, yeah, I can see how that's not
horrible.
The best value that you could serve to your organization or to people generally. So how did NASCAR come to be, and what happened with that?
So I used to do a lot of racing myself, dirt car racing, had a team and a driver for a long time. And one weekend we were at a race in, I want to say it was Missouri. And it was on a Saturday night. And one of the guys there knew someone in the NASCAR world, and they were racing in Talladega, Alabama, just, an hour and a half flight away from where we were. And so somebody said, "Oh, let's go to the NASCAR race." I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." So we got on the airplane the next morning and went to the NASCAR race. And while we were there, the guys that got us into the race, it was a driver that was managing his own team that was owned by two people from where you're from, up in the Boston area. I cannot remember their names, but if I could, you would know them. So he's like, "Yeah, they're wanting to get out of this." And this was in, I want to say May, June, something like that. And they're wanting to get out. They're trying to buy the team. I'd like to make it more competitive, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, have them shoot me some numbers. We'll look at it and kind of go from there. So they did. And we talked and came to agreement, and we bought the team in, I want to say August or September, after due diligence and working through everything. Mm-hmm. And so I bought this NASCAR team. So at the time I bought the team, it was a start and park team. It was basically a team that got to the racetrack, and their sole mission was to make the race. Make a few laps in the race, and then park the car to not wear it out, waste money on tires and da-da-da. And they ended up making a small profit every week, right? But I didn't want to do that. So
need to be bigger.
We just need to race. Like, look, I'm not going to buy a race team and then park the car every race. So, which was probably worst decision I made because I took something that was making money and started just throwing money at it. But God, it was so fun.
Yeah.
When the burn got into 7 figures a month, though, I started squealing a little bit. And 14 months into that, I squealed really hard. And we had some great partners that we were talking to. Colgate, Speed Stick brand was the brand that we were working with. Lending Tree, and a bunch of other companies, but no one could move fast enough to get the capital into the team fast enough for me to quit spending my money before I just got tired of it. So at some point, we just pulled the plug.
Did you sell the team? Did you just hand it off to partner? Like, what did that look like?
We sold off the assets. I did have a partner. Part of the assets went to him to a new team. Sold the rest of the assets off, either negotiated out of the contracts that existed or paid them off depending on the situation, and left out of there without any issues whatsoever, with the exception of one of the people that we sold equipment to never paid us, so we sued them, and I have a couple $1 million judgment against them that I was never going to collect probably. But yeah, I got out of that with by the hair of my chin to say the least, and it could have been way worse than it was. But I just decided I was out and went down over a 4-day period and did it. So
you had fun doing it too, I'm sure. Except for the lawsuit and the after effect. Did the partners stay in, or is he still active in the NASCAR world, or
not anymore? Not anymore. He was for a while though, and people always ask me about the NASCAR experience, and I tell them, and I'm like, I lost more money than most people ever dream of making in their life in just 18 months. And they're like, well, was it worth it? I'm like, absolutely. Okay. No question. I would do it again. I spent the weekends, like my co-owners were like Roger Penske and Rick Hendrick. And, these guys are billionaires, and so that's who you get to spend the weekends with and rub elbows with. Obviously that you don't get to spend much time with those guys, but just being able to shake their hand and have a conversation is a big deal because that's not something you get every day. Yeah. That and just the camaraderie. So I loved it. It was great. More fun than I've ever had in my life. I had an airplane through that period of time and flew on it so much that once I got finished with the NASCAR team, I didn't fly commercially for almost a year and a half. I was so spent on traveling. So gave me a whole new perspective on those people that do that and have for 30, 40 years, like every week flying here and flying there. And on that, you go from an airplane to a helicopter to a golf cart to a meeting to, just nonstop. And guys doing that for 30, 40 years every week. It's amazing that they're able to continue. It's a lot.
Were you actually flying? Was this a prop plane, or was it a corporate jet kind of thing? Like what was that?
Well, I had a little jet. So,
were you up in the front there at all?
Oh, no. I slept. That was when I got to sleep. I would literally, I'd leave from my office Thursday afternoon to get to the racetrack in the middle. Most of the races that were on the East Coast. So get there late, have meetings starting at 7 a.m. on the East Coast the next day. And that would go through the race the weekend. Sunday, I'd get home about 2 or 3 a.m. on Monday morning, go to my office at 7 a.m. Monday morning and work Monday, Tuesday. So that was just the airplane. If I was flying myself, I don't know how many times I wouldn't have made it home at some point because I was just so spent.
That makes sense.
But that was, the cool thing about NASCAR is they have, especially, so before the race, it's not that crazy. After the race, everyone wants to get out of there. Fans, team, drivers, everybody. So they had helicopters to charter. So you could charter a helicopter to the airport and be gone in, 30 minutes from the time the race was over, which was amazing versus the 2 hours it would normally take to get to the airport. So it was awesome. Sense. A lot of fun.
One thing that you and I talked about, and I told you I was going to ask you at the beginning of this before we even started the interview, was a lot of people say, hey, I'm sitting on a gold mine, but you're actually sitting on a gold mine. Can you explain that a little bit? What the heck is that? I've never heard of this before. So you own a gold mine, or your company owns a gold mine, whatever. Can you explain what that is?
I own with my partners a gold mine that is in Oregon. And there are lots of gold mines in Oregon and California, obviously. But it's not something that you think about. And until I got into it, the first time I heard about it, I was like, what? Why? Because all the gold mines you see are these giant ones in South Africa. And, and that's not what this is. This is more along the lines of what you see on the Gold Rush show. More, if you ever seen that, it was a big show.
I haven't.
Okay, well, most people have seen that. I don't know where you've been living in a hole, Jamie.
Right here, interviewing people like you. That's it.
Okay. but yeah, more. It's just simple. So you have trucks moving dirt going into a trommel, and then it washes off on a sluice, and then you take the carpet off the sluice and go back to a room and clean it out and find the gold. It's a lot, and so most gold mines are quite large. Ours is small. It's only 55 acres, but has as of the last report we had done, it was like $213 million worth of gold in the dirt. Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah. And I'm trying to sell it for a whopping 25 million. So, not a bad deal. If anybody's interested, just let me know. It's on the market right now. But yeah, it was one of those situations where I bought into it when oil crashed in 2014, 2015, because we needed something to do, because nothing was happening in the oil and gas world. So we bought into it, a small piece. Some events happened where the people in it that owned the majority weren't taking care of their piece of it. So we basically just came in and took over the whole thing, and which is the story of my life. I've done that several times, because I just can't quit. I have a hard time quitting.
Well, that's the question I wanted to ask you, kind of at the heart of this. Like, when did you realize you were an entrepreneur? When did this happen? Do you have that lemonade stand story, or was it later in life? I mean, it feels like you're sort of a born entrepreneur, but when did you realize you had that itch that you couldn't work for somebody else? You had to do this on your own.
When I was 8 years old, my cousin and I walked in a hobby shop and saw one of those rockets that you build and then shoot off. And I was only there for 3 days. So I wanted the rocket. He wanted the rocket. So we convinced his dad to give us a bunch of paper towels and some Windex, and went to the restaurant next door, and people would come to go to lunch, and we were like, hey, wash your windows, you can tip us. So we made enough money in one day to go get the rocket, get to shoot it off. That was my first business deal. I was probably 8. Yeah, obviously my grandparents were entrepreneurs. My dad's had his own businesses here and there. And I've seen that my whole life. W-2 pay. I mean, I can't remember the last time that happened. I honestly can't. It's been so long. And it was never traditional. It was always like the jobs that I had were W-2, commission only. So it wasn't your standard job. I've never had a salary above like 60 grand a year in my life. Whatever I've made beyond that has been in commission or just profit. So it's the only way I know how to live, I guess. And I don't know what the first time I realized it was, but it seemed like every time I would get into a situation and into a company or a job, I would very quickly escalate into more than that. And whether I wanted it to or not, it just happened. And so I can't tell you a specific time. It was almost every time. And almost every scenario. I worked at a car dealership and sold cars for a couple months when I was in college for a summer. And walked in, never sold a car in my life, walked out, top salesman that month. The guys begged me to stay, and we'll put you on track to be in finance and be a manager. And those guys made good money back then. And I'm like, nope, see you later. I mean, my dad was in the car business, so I had no desire to do that. But it just seemed like that happened in everything I did. And it wasn't, I don't know, I can't tell you why. And I don't feel like anything special. It just is what it is. It's what happens.
You've created quite a special life, a special organization, or the companies that you've built. On the sales side, that's the second time you talked about, like you said, at least 2 that I know of now, where you kind of went in and blew it up. Do you have a couple of things? Are there specific tactics or ways that you feel as though sales should be done, or that's led to your success? Or is it tactical? Is it just who you are? I'm kind of curious if you have any advice to share.
If you believe in what you're doing, it makes it real easy. And one of the things I learned early on is the less complex you can make whatever it is, no matter how complicated it actually is. If you can make something simple that people can understand, you can sell it, and you can sell a lot of it. And so the whole keep it simple, stupid, which everybody says all the time, like literally, I live by that. And I try not to add any parts and pieces to things, which doesn't work very well in relationships, by the way. But I try to keep it as simple as I can, as few words as possible, as little effort as possible, and a lot of excitement. That's it. And always tell people the whole story, like the good, the bad, the ugly, and you have to cover the whole basis. Or for me at least, I can't, or I don't feel good about it. So, and if I don't feel good about it, it doesn't happen. So it's a lot for me. It's a lot just emotion, passion, and discipline, because it's when you get all excited about something, you want to talk. So if you can discipline yourself to not do that, but when you do speak speak very specifically about things that matter, upside, downside, etc., it works, and it draws people in. And I got very good at training other people how to do the same thing, and setting a process up for whatever it was. Raising money for oil and gas development isn't very complicated. But what the problem is if you ever had a geologist or an engineer come talk to you about a project, you would leave confused. And if I come talk to you, you'll at least understand what's happening. From that, you can do what you want. But that's the whole thing: is taking piles and piles of data and compiling that into one page.
I like that. Yeah, distilling it down, right? Keeping it simple, as you mentioned,
and still being able to cover the bases, right? I mean, that's the most important part of it.
No, and I see that. And I mean, just from a couple of times that we've met, I mean, you're really easy to be around. I mean, you're definitely you're a big personality, high energy kind of guy, but you're really easy to kind of get infected by, if you will. I hope not literally, but you know what I'm saying.
I'm just going to leave that one alone.
We'll leave that there. But to your point, yeah, I think you efficiently sort of explained things. I asked you before about the gold mine, and you told me before it was just like 3 bullets. Like what sounded like this huge, worldly, complicated thing to me, you distilled it down to 2-3 bullets. Like, oh, okay, I can see how you own a gold mine now. But I wanted to put that out there for all the world to hear. So
I could have made that one even simpler. You can take a shovel and a bucket and a pan. That's a pan. All you need is a pan. Shovel, bucket, and a pan. That's all you need. And if you did that at my gold mine, no matter where you pick the bucket up, you're going to find some gold. So it's cool. Yeah.
Sneak in the middle of the night and get some gold. All right, let's shift over to the one sheet. We're going to go pillar by pillar through all the 6 pillars of GoBundance and learn a little bit more about you. So let's start with horizontal income. We were talking a little bit about this before. So I'll ask, what is your horizontal income? I know most of it gets funneled back to your companies, but just generally speaking, what's your horizontal income and how many lines or how many streams is that for you?
I pretty much all of my income is horizontal. And I own interest in a few hundred oil wells. And those are owned in different partnerships, LLCs and corporations. So how many lines, I'm not exactly sure. I believe it's like 45 entities that flow up to me, that I get K1s from, and or just flow straight up.
That's fun.
I have a full-time crew. So I have 3 full-time. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And plus we manage most of that.
Yep.
So we're managing it every month. As far as the numbers go, it varies, especially over the last 3 or 4 years, but it's 2 or 3 million a year. And if things are really good, it's in the high 7 figures, low 8 figures. If when things were really bad, like last year, then you're in the low 6 figures. So it kind of just varies around depending on oil price and what's happening in the market. So that's most everything is tied to oil and gas. I also have trucking and disposal well companies, but they're in the oil and gas field, so they're directly impacted by the price. So on. So
yep, no, gotcha. From a debt standpoint, do you have a sense of what your debt to net worth ratio is, or just generally your feelings on, not feelings, but how you structure debt within your businesses? Is it something where you keep a certain, you try not to go over a certain ratio, or are you leveraging as much as you can right now given the environment?
A year ago today, I had 0% debt, all cash and all assets. Today I have about 7%. Okay. And I only did that because last year was so horrific. We had to have it for cash flows to pay for things. So, just got to that point. And historically, I have been against it very much, which thank goodness, because if I had been able to get the debt in 2013 and 14 on my oil and gas assets that other companies got, I think the number ended up being close to $1 trillion that they wrote off in bankruptcies. In 2015 and 2016, I had 0 to do with that because we had, at the time, I think we had $70 million in revenue and $3 million in debt. If I had gotten what I wanted, though, it would have been $100 million in debt. Now the revenue would have been much larger, but
sure.
You get the gist. So today where we are, I've actually got a new bank relationship that we developed last year that we're going to start doing more debt loaded projects where we're going to be basically 75% LTV going in with 25% equity. It's going to be kind of like fix and flip money. But at 5%. So that part's great. But buying old oil assets, improving them, so the cash coming in will be for the down payment percentage, or if you will, our percentage of equity, and upgrades and improvements. And then from that, the rest will be debt. But with that improvement piece, we should be able to go in and increase the value of these assets by 200 or 300%.
Well, that's the thing. You've got a proven model, proven team, right, within this industry. So you're staying kind of in that lane and aggressively swinging. You're okay. Let me take this, integrate it, put my systems, processes, and energy around it. Increase the value, move on, right? So bringing it in at a 75% loan to value makes sense, because you know that you're going to stay at that debt load with a much higher valuation in a year, 2-3 years or something.
It should end up about 25%. And the way those are set up is they're on 4-year principal and interest. So it'll be paid off in 4 years, about the time you're going to be selling it anyway. Sure. So it should work pretty well. But that's something we have never done that way. But I'm excited about it because it's where the market is right now in oil and gas. So,
well, like you said, what's the worst that can happen? Is it worse than your current situation? And it sounds like both of those kind of check. You're ready to go on to the next one. So very cool. What percentage of your net worth is businesses, real estate, crypto? Do you have a kind of a breakdown, or is it all in on the business that you own?
As it's all in right now, everything's all in on what we own. I mean, I have a pretty large stake, I think $3 or $4 million stake in a nutrition company and beyond that, most all of it's oil and gas, whether it's wells or related businesses surrounding oil and gas.
What's the nutrition company, if you don't mind me asking?
It's called Nutrition 53. Nutrition 53. The product that they make that you probably have heard of, if you've heard of anything, is Lean One. They sell at Smoothie King. Lean One is their main product. So when we had our NASCAR team, that's when all that started. I bought into that company to get sponsorship for the NASCAR team.
Nice.
Oh, I don't know, one of those brilliant things. And it's been a lot of fun. Bill Romanowski owns that company, or is the primary founder. He was an NFL football player, linebacker.
I remember Bill. Yeah, intense.
Fun guy. You got to get a phone call from him when he needs something. Talk about intensity. I just laugh. I'm just like, is this how you do things? No, he's a great guy. He's a lot of fun, and you just never know what you're going to get. So
yeah, sure. No, he is definitely a high intensity, high motor guy, no doubt about it. Just from afar, you could tell that. So. All right, let's jump over to age-defying health. What is your current weight and body fat percentage?
Oh, man. So I'm about 230, which is about the same I was in Tahoe, which is literally 20 pounds heavier than I was in December.
20 pounds heavier than you were in December?
Yeah.
Okay.
I gained 20 pounds from December to March. And it's supposedly all muscle because I stopped running and started lifting.
I was gonna say, you eating a lot of pizza or what? So no,
but my body fat has gone from like 14 or 12 to 14%, and now it's like 18 or 20, and it's really, I've been having a struggle to get back. So right now, I'm 19% body fat, 230 pounds, and I'm 42.
Yep.
So
trying to work it down. I guess, yeah, like you said, you go through these phases. I have the same thing happen, not at your size, obviously, but it's like, well, I don't like the weight I'm at, but I kind of like the muscles that I built on myself. But then when you convert back, it's like
you burn both, right? You cut a little fat and you cut the muscle. So it's like, I'm trying to find that balance.
Well, what are you doing with that? What's the diet like? What's the exercise routine?
So I've actually recently switched my diet to back to all meat, carnivore. And I'm fasting for 18 to 20 hours a day and eating for 4 to 6 hours a day right now. Yeah.
4 to 6. So you'll fast to what, like noon, eat till 4, 5 o'clock or something like that?
So something like that. So last night I had one meal yesterday at 8 o'clock. And so I had my first meal today about an hour ago. So 3 o'clock. My time, and then I'll have dinner when I get home, and that'll be the end of it. So it just depends. If I get hungry, I eat, but you eat lean ground turkey or a hamburger patty, it doesn't do much for you anyway. So
yeah, that's fine. So do you do any? There's like 0 carbs in your diet right now.
Right now, yeah, right now.
That's pretty intense. Good for you, man. That's incredible discipline, because that much time going without eating. Like I guess I fast till noon, and then I eat till like 7 o'clock. But then
it's not much different.
Yeah, I guess there's sleep in there.
It's not much different.
You're not that impressive. Never mind. I thought you were more impressive than you were. I'm gonna draw that back a little bit. Not all that impressive. So how about family? So currently, what's the family situation? Girlfriend, wife, kids, all that good stuff.
Well, I have 2 ex-wives and 2 kids with one of those, and a girlfriend that lives with me. So
how old are your kids?
My oldest is 5 and my youngest is 3, 2 boys.
Boys, lots of energy. Mine are about the same, 6 and 3. So yeah, it's fun. I enjoy them, but boy, you want to knock their heads together sometimes too. So
It can wear you out really quick. That's
no
for sure.
doubt. Life happiness wise, what number is your life happiness index currently?
Around a 6.
All right, what's one
Plus
area
or
that you're
minus.
working on improving from a happiness perspective?
So I've really focused the last 3 years, 2.5 years on my health and made great progress on that. As we talked about, I got my body fat down at one point to around 10% and my weight down around 208, which I'm 6'2", so I look pretty skinny. So now I'm trying to focus on having a life, because for a long time, for about 10 years, I worked 24/7 and never did anything else. Didn't have friends. And at that time, I didn't have kids, so my life was far different. So my thing that I'm working on right now the most is trying to reach out, be more proactive with friends, GoBros, and anyone else. I'm actually doing a trip with some guys that I haven't seen since junior high. We're in a place that I live. We're all together later this month. So I'm really putting effort into and being more present and being more involved with friends instead of just work all the time.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
No, yeah, at some point you got to enjoy the trappings of your success, right? Especially, I know last year you mentioned was a tough year for you. You're past that now, and hopefully you can enjoy some downtime. We all need it.
Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. How about contribution? Do you have a percentage you give back? Is there an amount you give back? Is there a specific charity you like to donate to or anything like that?
No, nothing specific. I kind of do what feels right, and I get sucked into a lot of charity auctions and events of that nature. And some of that is you go to those things and maybe you spend $5,000 on a table and you think that's what you're going to spend, and then you end up spending $100,000 on auction items because you just have fun and get wrapped up in it. So I just kind of do whatever feels right, and that's what I've always done.
Love it.
Yeah, nothing specific.
No, makes sense. Give where you can give. From an accountability standpoint, you just started a GoPod, I heard.
I don't know if I'm going to say I started it.
Well, you just started in a GoPod. How's that?
But there were 2 guys that were supposedly in a GoPod that no one else ever came to, and they never had meetings, and that I made myself part of that group. I actually have a GoPod group that I've been with since I started, but I always miss the meetings because they're on Monday, and Mondays are crazy for me. Yeah. Especially middle of the day. So it seems like I have a hard time making. I've made a couple. The guys are great, but I haven't got to know them that well. My new GoPod with with Joe and Paul, it's I've gotten to know those guys more in a couple weeks than anybody else in GoBundance, and it's because we have a text string going. We're constantly throwing ideas, concept questions back and forth to each other, and had a great time with that. And so that's an area that we're talking about. I'm talking about going to visit those guys when DC and Philly, and just trying to expand my world a little bit.
That's cool. Yeah, the meeting in person helps, right? I know you met them in Atlanta, so it's nice to kind of press the flesh and get to know the person a little bit, not just through a Zoom call, which is always beneficial. So I'm sure that helped in connecting the 3 of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the biggest business goal you have for the next year? You're talking about personal, but what is a big business goal that you have this year?
My biggest goal is I've been working for several years on redirecting the focus of my company, because the world's changed. The way that everything works has changed, especially in the last 2 years, but over the last 5. And so slowly but surely, we've been upgrading, working on new things. So my goal between now and the end of the year is to have a specific direction for the company to go and get it moving that way as fast as it can possibly move. And we're coming in on the final stages of that right now, as far as the planning and pointing. And then once we get the target identified, we're going to push hard. Acquisitions, like we talked about earlier, is a big part of it. That's something we've been talking about and working on conceptually for about a year. Put some offers in on some deals, didn't get them. I'm glad we didn't, because we weren't ready yet anyway. So we're now to the point where we're tuned up and ready for that. And once that happens, it's who knows where we'll end up. There you go. I'm excited to see.
Love it. All right. Well, let's wrap this up with a question from the GoBundance card deck. This is a deep one, 10 of hearts. Here's to see how your answers. Have you ever sold your soul, or at least sold out on anything?
No.
So jobs you've taken, anything like that, never did it for the wrong reasons and it backfired or anything like that?
Not that I can remember. No, I mean, that was, no.
That's
Not that I can think of.
Worldview for me is I don't believe in the word regret. And it sounds
You
like what
can't.
kind of you are. Right. You had the NASCAR team, you were throwing 7 figures a month at it. It was a big loser, but you wouldn't change it. It shaped some of who you are today. You learned from it. You had some fun doing it. You traveled a bit and all that stuff. So I actually like that answer quite a bit. Thanks for being honest with that. Because that could have been an easy, like, well, let me think of something here that's creative, but that's a good answer. No.
Life without regrets is the only way to live life. Otherwise, you're really not getting everything out of it.
A tweetable moment, my friend. Let's do this. What is the best way for people to learn more about you, follow you, or learn more about your companies?
Just call me. That's probably the easiest way. Obviously, Swan Energy Inc. Is the website for my company. There's information there about us, what we do. Obviously, I'm very Googleable with all the things that have happened over the years, good and bad. It's out there. But my cell phone number for all the GoBundance people, it's 719-337-0423. Just text me, call me, and we can chat about whatever. It's one of those things that one of my new GoPod members at some point said, I want to do some business with you. And I said, look, if we do business, that's great. I said, but I would rather talk shit and have a good time than worry about doing business. If business happens, that's awesome. But otherwise, it's the camaraderie that I'm looking for. So
I explain that to people when they ask about GoBundance. I'm like, look, the business, the money side kind of happens, but it's more about the adventures and the camaraderie and getting together, the fellowship. So it's cool that you say that. Yeah. Very cool.
I mean, it's the truth. It's the way it is. So
I love it.
A lot of fun.
Well, thanks for being so generous with your time today, brother. I'm going to see you in Steamboat.
I don't know. I actually was just talking about that with my staff. I'm trying to decide if I want to do that. I have a couple of trips planned in the next couple of weeks, and we're getting busy. So we'll kind of see what happens. But if so, I'll make sure and say hello. And I appreciate you putting me on. This is kind of cool. I need to go back and listen to the other one so I have a clue as to how stupid I sound or how great I sounded here in this one. So time will tell, I guess.
You sounded great. We'll edit out the stupid, I promise.
Thank you. Need all the help I can get.
Appreciate you. Thanks for coming on today.
All right, man. Take care.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let us know down in the comments and make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you can be informed on the next episode and other content right here on this channel. Thank you.